The morning sun cast long shadows across the parking lot of Westbrook Elementary School as Sarah Mitchell pulled her old Honda Civic into one of the few remaining spots. She checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, trying to smooth down the stubborn strand of hair that refused to cooperate. Her eyes looked tired, she noticed, the kind of tired that no amount of sleep could fix. It had been 18 months since David passed, and some days it still felt like yesterday. She glanced at the passenger seat where her 7-year-old daughter Emma sat clutching a crumpled piece of paper. The invitation to the annual spring gala, the most anticipated event at Westbrook Elementary. Every year, parents contributed to make it a magical evening for the children, complete with decorations, entertainment, and an elaborate dinner. Every year, Sarah had watched from the sidelines, unable to afford the $400 contribution that somehow seemed mandatory rather than optional. "Mummy, are we going to talk to Mrs. Henderson about the party?" Emma's voice was small, hopeful in that way only children can be. Sarah took a deep breath and forced a smile. "Yes, sweetheart, we're going to see if there's a way you can still go to the party. But we don't have to pay, right? Because Daddy's in heaven now and we don't have as much money?" The innocence of the question hit Sarah like a punch to the chest. How do you explain financial hardship to a child who still believes in magic and happy endings? "That's what I'm going to talk to Mrs. Henderson about, baby. Sometimes schools make exceptions for families who are going through hard times." Emma nodded solemnly, her brown curls bouncing. "Okay, Mommy, I hope she says yes. All my friends are going and Madison said there's going to be a real princess there." Sarah unbuckled her seatbelt and stepped out of the car, the cool March air biting at her cheeks. She'd chosen her best blouse for this meeting, the one David had bought her for their 10th anniversary. It was starting to show its age, just like everything else in her life, but it still made her feel somewhat put together. They walked hand in hand toward the main entrance, Emma skipping slightly, despite the gravity of the situation. The school building loomed before them, its brick facade and manicured lawns a testament to the wealthy community it served. Sarah had moved here with David when he got the promotion at his tech company, back when $400 seemed like pocket change rather than an impossible sum. The receptionist, a kind woman named Gloria, who always had a warm smile, looked up as they entered. "Good morning, Mrs. Mitchell. Emma, don't you look pretty today?" Emma beamed. "Thank you, Miss Gloria. We're here to see Mrs. Henderson about the party." Gloria's smile faltered almost imperceptibly, a flicker of something that looked like sympathy crossing her features. "Of course. Mrs. Henderson is expecting you. Go right ahead to her office." Sarah thanked her and guided Emma down the familiar hallway, past the bulletin boards covered with children's artwork and the trophy cases celebrating decades of academic achievement. The door to the director's office was slightly ajar, and Sarah could hear voices inside. She knocked gently, and the conversation stopped abruptly. "Come in," came the clipped response. Sarah pushed open the door to find Patricia Henderson seated behind her massive mahogany desk, speaking with another woman Sarah vaguely recognized as one of the PTA board members. Mrs. Henderson was impeccably dressed as always, her silver hair styled in a perfect bob, her designer suit probably costing more than Sarah's monthly grocery budget. "Mrs. Mitchell," Patricia said, her tone cool and professional. "Please have a seat. Jennifer was just leaving." The other woman, Jennifer, gathered her things and offered Sarah a tight smile as she passed. "Good luck," she murmured, just low enough that Sarah wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. Sarah settled into one of the leather chairs, facing the desk, pulling Emma onto her lap. The little girl squirmed, uncomfortable in the formal setting. "So," Patricia began, folding her hands on the desk in front of her, "you wanted to discuss the spring gala?" "Yes, I was hoping we could talk about the contribution. As you may know, my husband passed away last year, and I've been having some difficulty with our finances. I was wondering if there might be some kind of payment plan, or perhaps a reduced rate for families experiencing hardship." Patricia's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind her eyes. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm aware of your situation. However, the spring gala is funded entirely by parent contributions. We don't have a mechanism for reduced rates." "I understand, but surely there must be some flexibility. Emma has been looking forward to this event all year, and I would hate for her to miss out because of circumstances beyond our control." Patricia leaned back in her chair, a gesture that somehow managed to be both dismissive and condescending. "The contribution amount was set by the parent committee to ensure we can provide a quality experience for all the children. If we start making exceptions, where does it end?" Sarah felt heat rising to her cheeks, but kept her voice steady. "I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking if there's any way I can participate, even partially. I could volunteer my time, help with setup or cleanup. I used to work in event planning before Emma was born." "We have plenty of volunteers, Mrs. Mitchell. What we need are contributions." Emma, sensing the tension in the room, pressed closer to her mother. "Mommy, can I go to the party?" Patricia's gaze shifted to the child, and for a moment Sarah thought she saw a flicker of compassion, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. "Perhaps," Patricia said slowly, "you should consider whether Westbrook is the right fit for your family anymore. There are several excellent public schools in the district that might be more accommodating to your current circumstances." The words hung in the air like a slap. Sarah felt her throat constrict, years of conditioning telling her to stay calm, to be polite, to not make a scene. "Are you suggesting I pull my daughter out of her school because I can't afford a party?" Patricia smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "I'm suggesting that you consider what's best for Emma. Children can be cruel, and if she's unable to participate in school events, well, that can be quite isolating." Sarah stood, her legs trembling slightly. "Come on, Emma, we're leaving." "But Mommy, what about the party?" "We'll talk about it in the car, sweetheart." As they reached the door, Patricia's voice stopped them. "Mrs. Mitchell, I do hope you understand. It's nothing personal. We simply have standards to maintain." Sarah turned, her eyes meeting Patricia's. "I understand perfectly, Mrs. Henderson, perfectly." They walked back through the hallway in silence, Emma's small hand gripping Sarah's tightly. Gloria looked up as they passed, but said nothing, her eyes conveying volumes. In the parking lot, Sarah helped Emma into the car, and then sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. She would not cry. Not here, not where anyone could see. "Mommy?" Emma's voice was tiny. "Does this mean I can't go to the party?" Sarah took a deep breath and turned to face her daughter. "I don't know yet, baby, but I promise you, no matter what happens, we're going to figure this out together, okay?" Emma nodded, her lower lip trembling. "I just wanted to see the princess." "I know, sweetheart, I know." Sarah started the car and pulled out of the parking lot, her mind racing. $400. It might as well have been 4 million. Since David's death, she'd been barely keeping her head above water. The life insurance had covered the funeral and a few months of bills, but it had run out quickly. She'd found a job at a local bakery, working the early morning shift before Emma woke up, but the pay was modest at best. As she drove through the quiet streets of Westbrook, passing the beautiful homes with their manicured lawns and expensive cars, Sarah felt the familiar weight of inadequacy settling on her shoulders. She didn't belong here anymore. Maybe she never had. Her phone buzzed in her purse, and she waited until she reached a red light to check it, a text from her sister, Margaret. "How did the meeting go?" Sarah typed back a quick response. "Not great, call you later." The light changed, and she continued driving, her thoughts drifting to David. He would have known what to do. He always knew what to do. He'd been the one with the plans, the optimism, the unwavering belief that everything would work out. Without him, Sarah often felt like she was just going through the motions, pretending to be a functioning adult while everything fell apart around her. When they got home, Sarah made Emma a snack and turned on her favorite cartoon before retreating to the kitchen to call Margaret. "That bad, huh?" Margaret answered on the first ring. "Worse. She basically told me to find another school if I couldn't afford to participate." "You're kidding. That's outrageous." "I wish I was kidding. And the worst part is Emma was sitting right there. She heard everything." "Oh, Sarah, I'm so sorry. What are you going to do?" Sarah leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the small backyard that needed mowing. "I don't know. I've been trying to figure out where I could come up with $400, but I'm already behind on the electric bill, and the car needs new tires." "Have you thought about reaching out to David's company? Maybe they have some kind of assistance program for families of former employees?" "He called them a few months ago about a different matter. They were sympathetic, but said there wasn't much they could do. The company's been going through its own financial difficulties since the merger." Margaret was quiet for a moment. "What about the community? Maybe there's a GoFundMe or something?" "I couldn't do that. It's too humiliating. I know people struggle with much worse. I can't ask strangers for money just so my daughter can go to a school party." "It's not just about the party, though, is it? It's about Emma feeling like she belongs." Sarah closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "I know, but I don't know what to do." "Listen, I wish I could help more, but with the twins starting college next year, we're stretched pretty thin ourselves." "I know, Maggie, I'm not asking for money. I just needed someone to vent to." "Well, I'm always here for that. And hey, maybe something will come up. You never know." After they hung up, Sarah stood in the kitchen for a long moment, listening to the sound of the cartoon playing in the other room. Emma's laughter drifted in, and despite everything, it made Sarah smile. That little girl was her whole world, her reason for getting up every morning and pushing through the exhaustion. She couldn't give up. She wouldn't give up. Over the next few days, Sarah threw herself into finding a solution. She picked up extra shifts at the bakery, coming home so tired she could barely keep her eyes open. She sold a few things on Facebook Marketplace, things she'd been holding on to for sentimental reasons. David's golf clubs brought in $80. His vintage record collection went for $150. Each sale felt like losing another piece of him, but she told herself it was worth it. By Thursday, she'd managed to scrape together $237, still short, but closer than she'd been. That evening, while Emma was doing her homework at the kitchen table, Sarah sat down beside her with a cup of tea. "How's the math coming along?" Emma looked up, her face scrunched in concentration. "It's hard. Why do I need to know how to add fractions?" Sarah laughed softly. "You know, I asked my mom the same question when I was your age, and she told me that one day it would all make sense." "Did it?" "Eventually. It helps when you're cooking or measuring things, but honestly, most of the time, I just use a calculator." Emma grinned and Sarah's heart swelled. This kid was going to be okay. They both were. "Mommy," Emma set down her pencil, "are you sad about the party?" Sarah considered how to answer. She'd always tried to be honest with Emma while still protecting her from the harsh realities of their situation. "I'm working on it, sweetheart. I'm trying to find a way to make it work." "Madison said her mum bought a new dress just for the party. It's pink with sparkles." "That sounds beautiful." "I told her I was going to wear my blue dress, the one Grandma gave me for Christmas." Sarah reached out and tucked a curl behind Emma's ear. "That dress is perfect. You look like a princess in it." "Really?" "Really." Emma beamed, and for a moment the weight on Sarah's shoulders felt a little lighter. The next morning, Sarah was at the bakery before dawn, shaping loaves of bread and preparing the display cases for the morning rush. Her boss, a kind woman named Rosa, who'd hired her without hesitation when she'd walked in desperate for work, noticed her fatigue. "You look tired, Mika. Everything okay?" Sarah wiped flour from her hands and sighed. "Just dealing with some stuff at Emma's school, the annual party, and I can't afford the contribution." Rosa's face softened with understanding. Aye, these fancy schools and their fancy parties. When I was a girl in Mexico, we celebrated with tamales and dancing in the street. Nobody needed $400. Sometimes I wonder if I should just pull her out and put her in public school. It would certainly be easier on the budget. Rosa shook her head firmly. You do what's best for your family, but don't let those rich people make you feel small. You're worth just as much as any of them. Sarah smiled gratefully. Thank you, Rosa. That means a lot. Around midday, Sarah's phone buzzed with an incoming call from an unknown number. She almost let it go to voicemail, but decided to answer on the last ring. Hello? Is this Sarah Mitchell? The voice was male, professional, unfamiliar. Yes, who's calling? Mrs. Mitchell, my name is Robert Chen. I was a colleague of your husband's at Tech Forward. I'm sorry to bother you, but I was wondering if you might have a few minutes to talk. Sarah's heart skipped. About what? It's a bit complicated to explain over the phone. Would you be available to meet for coffee sometime today or tomorrow? Sarah hesitated. She didn't know this man, and the call felt strange, but something about his tone suggested sincerity. I suppose I could meet this afternoon after I pick up my daughter from school. There's a coffee shop near Westbrook Elementary called The Daily Grind. Perfect. Would 4 o'clock work? That's fine. Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. I'll see you then. After hanging up, Sarah stared at her phone, puzzled. She couldn't remember David ever mentioning a Robert Chen. But then again, Tech Forward had been a large company with hundreds of employees. Maybe he was from a different department. The rest of the day passed in a blur of kneading dough and serving customers. When 3 o'clock finally arrived, Sarah rushed to the school to pick up Emma, her mind still occupied by the mysterious phone call. Emma bounded out of the building, her backpack bouncing, full of the boundless energy that only 7-year-olds seem to possess. Mommy, guess what? We learned about butterflies today, and Miss Patterson said we're going to have caterpillars in class next month so we can watch them turn into butterflies. That sounds amazing, sweetheart. Listen, Mommy has to meet someone for coffee. It won't take long, and you can have a hot chocolate while we're there. Sound good? Yes, I love hot chocolate. They drove to the Daily Grind, a cozy establishment that Sarah had frequented back when she could afford such luxuries. As they walked in, she spotted a man in his early 50s, seated at a corner table. He had graying hair and kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Mrs. Mitchell? He stood and extended his hand. Robert Chen, thank you for meeting me. Of course, this is my daughter, Emma. Robert crouched down to Emma's level. Nice to meet you, Emma. Your dad talked about you all the time. Emma's eyes widened. You knew my daddy? I did. He was one of the best people I've ever worked with. They settled at the table, and Sarah ordered a coffee for herself and a hot chocolate for Emma. Once the drinks arrived, Robert leaned forward, his expression serious. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm going to be direct with you. I've been following your situation since David's passing, and I want to help. Sarah frowned. My situation? What do you mean? I know things have been difficult financially. David confided in me before the accident. He was worried about what would happen to you and Emma if anything ever happened to him. Sarah felt her throat tighten. David had always been the worrier, always planning for every contingency. She'd teased him about it, called him her personal insurance agent. I appreciate that, Mr. Chen, but I don't understand what you're offering. Robert reached into his briefcase and pulled out a folder. When Tech Forward merged with Global Sync last year, there was a lot of chaos. Severance packages got lost in the shuffle. Benefits were mishandled. I've been working with HR to sort out some of these issues, and I discovered that David was owed a significant amount of unpaid stock options and performance bonuses. Sarah's heart began to race. What kind of amount? Including interest and penalties for the delayed payment, approximately $87,000. The number hung in the air, surreal and impossible. Sarah felt the room spin slightly. I'm sorry, did you say 87,000? Robert nodded, a small smile playing at his lips. It should have been paid out to his estate months ago, but like I said, the merger caused a lot of administrative problems. I've been working on this for a while now, and I finally got approval last week to process the payment. Sarah stared at him, unable to form words. Emma, oblivious to the significance of the conversation, was busy trying to fish a marshmallow out of her hot chocolate with a spoon. "Mr. Chen, I don't know what to say. I can't." "You don't have to say anything. David earned that money. It belongs to his family. But why would you go to all this trouble? You don't even know us." Robert's expression grew thoughtful. "Your husband was a good man, Mrs. Mitchell. When I was going through my divorce 3 years ago, he was the only person at the company who checked on me, who made sure I was okay. He invited me to Thanksgiving dinner when I had nowhere else to go. He never asked for anything in return. This is the least I could do." Sarah felt tears streaming down her cheeks, and she didn't even try to stop them. "I don't know how to thank you." "You just did." Robert slid the folder across the table. "These are the documents you'll need to sign. The payment should be processed within 2 weeks." After Robert left, Sarah sat at the table for a long time, staring at the folder in her hands. Emma finished her hot chocolate and started drawing on a napkin with a crayon she'd found in her pocket. "Mummy, why are you crying?" Sarah wiped her eyes and pulled Emma into a hug. "Because sometimes, sweetheart, when you think everything is falling apart, something wonderful happens." "Like magic?" "Exactly like magic." 2 weeks later, the money appeared in Sarah's bank account just as Robert had promised. It wasn't a fortune by any means, but it was enough. Enough to pay off the overdue bills, to get the car fixed, to put some money away for Emma's future. And yes, enough to afford the spring gala contribution with plenty to spare. But Sarah didn't just write a check for $400. She had something else in mind. She called the school and asked to speak with Gloria, the receptionist. "Gloria, I need your help with something. I want to set up a scholarship fund for the spring gala for families who can't afford the contribution. Can you tell me how many families are in that situation this year?" Gloria was quiet for a moment. "Mrs. Mitchell, that's incredibly generous. Let me check." A few minutes later, she came back on the line. "There are 7 families who haven't been able to contribute, including yours." "Perfect. I'd like to cover the contribution for all of them, anonymously, if possible." "Absolutely. I can arrange that. Mrs. Henderson doesn't need to know the source." Sarah smiled. "Thank you, Gloria. And one more thing. I'd like to make an additional donation for extra entertainment at the party, something really special for the kids." "What did you have in mind?" Sarah thought about Emma's constant chatter about princesses, about all the children who probably shared that same dream. "I want to hire a real princess, the best one available, with a carriage if possible." Gloria laughed with delight. "Mrs. Mitchell, you're going to make a lot of children very happy." The day of the spring gala arrived on a warm Saturday afternoon in late April. Sarah had kept her plans secret from everyone, including Emma, who was simply thrilled to be attending the party at all. As they drove to the school, Emma bounced in her seat, her blue dress perfect against her brown curls. "Mommy, do you think the princess will be there?" "I hope so, sweetheart." The school parking lot was already filling up with luxury cars and well-dressed families. Sarah parked the Honda at the far end, where it wouldn't draw too much attention, and walked Emma toward the building. The transformation was remarkable. The gymnasium had been converted into a wonderland of flowers and fairy lights, with elegant tables draped in white linens and centerpieces that must have cost more than Sarah used to spend on groceries. A string quartet played softly in the corner, and waiters circulated with trays of appetizers. Emma's eyes went wide. "Mommy, it's beautiful." "It is, isn't it?" They made their way inside, Emma immediately spotting her friends and running off to join them. Sarah watched her go, a smile spreading across her face. "Mrs. Mitchell." Sarah turned to find Patricia Henderson standing behind her, dressed in an exquisite black gown, a glass of champagne in her hand. Her expression was neutral, but there was something different in her eyes. Curiosity, perhaps. "Mrs. Henderson, everything looks wonderful." "Yes, the parent committee really outdid themselves this year." Patricia paused, seeming to weigh her next words carefully. "I have to admit, I was surprised to see Emma's name on the attendance list." "Were you?" "I assumed, given our conversation, that you wouldn't be attending." Sarah kept her expression pleasant. "Things have a way of working out." Before Patricia could respond, there was a commotion at the entrance. Sarah turned to see what was happening and felt her breath catch. A white, horse-drawn carriage had pulled up outside the gymnasium doors, and stepping out of it in a gown that sparkled like starlight was a woman who looked exactly like she'd stepped out of a fairy tale. But it wasn't just any actress in a costume. Sarah had done her research, had made calls, had spent a significant portion of her unexpected windfall to make this happen. The woman walking toward them was none other than Elizabeth Montgomery, the star of the wildly popular Princess Chronicles movies that every child in America was obsessed with. The real deal. The actual actress. Children screamed with delight, parents gasped, and Patricia Henderson's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the gymnasium floor. "Oh my," Patricia whispered, her face pale. Elizabeth Montgomery, professional and poised, made her way into the gymnasium with a warm smile. She spotted Emma in the crowd of children rushing toward her and knelt down. "Hello, little ones. I heard there was a very special party happening, and I just had to come visit." Emma pushed her way to the front, her eyes as big as saucers. "Are you really Princess Aurora?" Elizabeth smiled, that famous smile that had graced movie screens and magazine covers. "In the movies, yes, but today I'm just here to celebrate with all of you." The children swarmed around her, asking questions, requesting hugs, touching her dress to make sure she was real. Elizabeth handled it all with grace and patience, making each child feel special. Sarah stood back, watching her daughter's face transform with pure joy. This moment alone was worth every penny. Patricia appeared at her side, her composure somewhat recovered, but still clearly shaken. "How did you arrange this?" Patricia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah turned to face her, keeping her tone light. "I made some calls. Elizabeth Montgomery doesn't do private appearances. I tried to book her for the mayor's daughter's birthday party last year. Her people said no amount of money could change her schedule." Sarah smiled enigmatically. Maybe she's particular about which invitations she accepts. What Sarah didn't mention was that she'd discovered through her research that Elizabeth Montgomery was a passionate advocate for children who'd lost parents. Her own father had died when she was young, leaving her family in difficult circumstances. When Sarah's letter reached her, explaining the situation with Emma and the other families struggling to afford the party, Elizabeth had responded personally. She'd waived her usual fee entirely, asking only that Sarah donate what she would have paid to a grief counseling organization for children. "The secret benefactor," Patricia muttered, more to herself than to Sarah. "I'm sorry?" Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly. "Someone made an anonymous donation to cover the contributions for several families, and an additional sum for entertainment." She looked at Sarah with new assessment. "That was you." Sarah neither confirmed nor denied it. "The important thing is that every child gets to be here tonight." Patricia was quiet for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, she let out a small laugh. "I underestimated you, Mrs. Mitchell. A lot of people do. When you came to my office, I assumed you were just another struggling single mother looking for a handout. I was wrong." Patricia paused, something shifting in her expression. "I'm sorry for what I said that day, about finding another school. That was cruel and unnecessary." The apology surprised Sarah, but she accepted it with grace. Thank you for saying that. May I ask how your circumstances changed so dramatically? My husband left behind more than I realized. It just took some time and some help from good people to sort it all out. Patricia nodded slowly. David Mitchell. I remember him, actually. He gave a talk at a PTA meeting once about technology and education. He was very charismatic. He was. Sarah's voice softened. He was the best person I ever knew. Across the gymnasium, Emma was now sitting on Elizabeth Montgomery's lap, showing her something in a small book she'd brought. Elizabeth was listening intently, as if whatever Emma was saying was the most important thing in the world. Your daughter is lovely, Patricia observed. She's my whole world. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of happiness. Elizabeth Montgomery stayed for nearly 3 hours, far longer than her scheduled appearance. She took photos with every child, signed autographs, and even led a group dance that had all the kids laughing and twirling. At one point, Sarah found herself standing next to Robert Chen, who had arrived quietly an hour into the event. You came, she said, surprised. I wanted to see this for myself. Gloria called me, told me what you did. Gloria has a big mouth. Robert laughed. She's proud of you. We all are. David would be too. Sarah watched Emma dancing with her friends, her blue dress spinning, her face radiant. This isn't what I expected when I walked into that meeting with Patricia Henderson. Life really is. Robert handed her a glass of sparkling cider, to David and to you for carrying on his legacy of kindness. Sarah clinked her glass against his. To David. As the evening wound down and families began to leave, Elizabeth Montgomery approached Sarah one last time. Mrs. Mitchell, I wanted to thank you for inviting me. This was one of the most rewarding appearances I've ever done. Thank you for coming. You made my daughter's dreams come true. Elizabeth glanced over at Emma, who was now showing off her autographed photo to anyone who would look. She told me about her father, about how he used to call her his little princess and read her bedtime stories every night. Sarah felt tears prick at her eyes. He did, every single night. She also told me that you read to her now, that you do the voices just like Daddy used to. Elizabeth smiled gently. You're a good mother, Mrs. Mitchell. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. As Elizabeth departed in her carriage, the children waving and cheering, Sarah felt a hand slip into hers. She looked down to find Emma beaming up at her. Mommy, this was the best night ever. Sarah knelt down and pulled her daughter into a tight embrace. I'm so glad, sweetheart. The princess said I was brave. She said losing a daddy is really hard, but that my daddy is always with me in my heart. Is that true? Yes, baby, it's absolutely true. They walked to the car together, Emma chattering non-stop about every detail of the evening. Sarah listened, her heart full, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. The despair, the struggle, the moments when she'd wanted to give up. But she hadn't given up, and somehow, through a combination of persistence, luck, and the kindness of strangers who weren't really strangers at all, everything had worked out. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Sarah noticed Patricia Henderson standing at the entrance of the school, watching them go. And for just a moment, she thought she saw something like respect in the director's eyes. The weeks following the spring gala brought unexpected changes to Sarah's life. Word had spread about the anonymous donor who'd made the event so special, and though Sarah never confirmed her involvement, the community's attitude toward her shifted noticeably. Parents who had previously looked through her at school drop-off now smiled and waved. Other mothers invited her to coffee dates and play dates. Even Patricia Henderson made a point of greeting her warmly whenever they crossed paths. But the most significant change came in the form of a phone call one Tuesday morning. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Jennifer Lawson. We met briefly at Patricia Henderson's office. Sarah remembered her, the PTA board member who'd been leaving as she arrived, who'd wished her good luck. Of course, Mrs. Lawson, how can I help you? Please, call me Jennifer. Listen, I've been thinking a lot since the gala. What you did for those families, it was remarkable. And I heard from Gloria that you used to work in event planning? That's right. Before Emma was born, I worked for a company in the city. Well, I have a proposition for you. The Westbrook Community Foundation is looking for a part-time event coordinator. The pay isn't spectacular, but the hours are flexible, and you'd be doing work that matters. Would you be interested in interviewing? Sarah nearly dropped the phone. Yes, I would be very interested. Wonderful. Can you come in Thursday at 10? The interview went well, better than Sarah had expected. The foundation's director, a warm woman named Catherine Brooks, was impressed by Sarah's background and even more impressed by what she'd organized for the spring gala. What you did there showed initiative, creativity, and heart, Catherine said. Those are exactly the qualities we're looking for. By the end of the week, Sarah had a new job. The salary wasn't huge, but combined with what she'd saved from the unexpected windfall, it provided stability. More importantly, it gave her a sense of purpose beyond just surviving. Emma thrived as well. Her friendship with Madison deepened, and she began to come out of the shell she'd retreated into after David's death. She still had bad days, days when she cried for her daddy or asked questions Sarah didn't know how to answer. But they grew fewer. One evening in late May, Sarah was preparing dinner when Emma wandered into the kitchen, holding something behind her back. "Mommy, I made you something at school today." "Oh yeah, let me see." Emma revealed a piece of construction paper covered in crayon drawings. Sarah recognized herself, rendered in stick figure form with wild yellow hair, standing next to a smaller figure with brown curls. Above them was a sun, a house, and what appeared to be an angel with wings. "That's me and you," Emma explained, pointing, "and that's Daddy watching us from heaven." Sarah felt her heart constrict. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." "Miss Patterson said we should draw our families. Madison drew her mom and dad, and brother and dog, but I only have you and Daddy in heaven. Is that okay?" Sarah set down the drawing and lifted Emma onto her lap. "That's more than okay. Our family might look different from Madison's, but it's perfect just the way it is." "Because we have each other?" "Exactly, and because even though Daddy isn't here anymore, the love he gave us stays with us forever." Emma nodded solemnly, processing this in the way children do, accepting it without fully understanding. Then she wriggled off Sarah's lap and ran to the refrigerator. "Can we put my picture here so we can see it every day?" "Absolutely." Sarah found a magnet and stuck the drawing to the refrigerator door, positioning it at eye level. She stood back and looked at it, at the simple depiction of their little family, and felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. They were going to be okay, more than okay. The summer passed in a comfortable rhythm. Sarah settled into her new job, finding fulfillment in organizing fundraisers and community events. Emma spent her days at a summer camp nearby, coming home with tales of swimming lessons, arts and crafts, and the endless drama of 7-year-old friendships. Robert Chen became a regular presence in their lives. What started as monthly check-ins evolved into something resembling friendship. He'd come for dinner once in a while, help Sarah with household repairs that were beyond her skill set, and listen patiently as Emma recounted every detail of her day. "She's got David's gift for Gab," he observed one evening, after Emma had finally exhausted herself and gone to bed. Sarah laughed, refilling their wine glasses. "He could talk to anyone about anything. Used to drive me crazy sometimes, waiting for him to finish a conversation so we could leave a party." I miss that about him. The office felt emptier after he was gone. "The world feels emptier." Robert nodded, understanding in his eyes. "It does, but it's also still turning, and I think David would want you to keep turning with it." Sarah considered this. "I used to think that moving forward meant leaving him behind, but lately I've realized it's more like carrying him with me. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The only sound the ticking of the grandfather clock David had inherited from his father. "Robert, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why did you really do all this? The money, the support, the showing up. David was kind to you, but this goes beyond repaying a favor." Robert was quiet for a long moment, staring into his wine glass. "When my wife left, I was at the lowest point in my life. I thought about ending it all, more than once. David was the only person who noticed, who reached out, who refused to let me disappear into my own misery." He looked up, his eyes glistening. "He saved my life, Sarah, literally. So when I had the chance to help his family, it wasn't even a question." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "He never told me any of that. That was David. He didn't do good things for recognition or gratitude. He just did them because they were right. That's the man I married." As summer faded into autumn, Sarah began to think about the future in ways she hadn't since David's death. She enrolled in some online courses to update her event planning credentials. She started a small savings account for Emma's college education. She even went on a few dates arranged by well-meaning friends, though nothing serious developed. One September afternoon, Patricia Henderson called her personally to invite her to join the PTA board. "You've proven yourself to be a valuable member of our community, Mrs. Mitchell. We'd be honored to have your insight and creativity." Sarah accepted, partly because she wanted to have more involvement in Emma's education, and partly because she knew it would have made David proud. He'd always encouraged her to be more involved, to stop hanging back and start stepping forward. The first board meeting was held in the school library on a Wednesday evening. Sarah arrived to find a dozen parents seated around a long table, most of them faces she now recognized and could greet by name. Patricia called the meeting to order and introduced the new board member. There was a smattering of polite applause, and then they got down to business: budgets, schedules, policy proposals, the mundane machinery of school governance. About an hour in, the topic turned to the upcoming winter holiday concert. "We need to discuss the ticket pricing," one of the board members said. "Last year we charged $20 per seat, which helped offset the cost of the venue. But some parents complained that it was too expensive." Another member jumped in. "We can't just give everything away for free. Quality costs money." The debate went back and forth, familiar territory for anyone who'd ever served on a committee. Sarah listened, gathering her thoughts. Finally, she spoke up. "What if we offered a sliding scale? Families could pay what they can afford, with a suggested donation amount. That way, no one is excluded, and those who can contribute more have the opportunity to do so." The room went quiet. Patricia looked at Sarah with an expression Sarah couldn't quite read. "And how would we ensure we cover our costs?" Jennifer Lawson asked, genuinely curious rather than challenging. "We could reach out to local businesses for sponsorships. In exchange for their support, they'd get recognition in the program and signage at the event. My background is in event planning, and I'd be happy to take the lead on securing sponsors." Several board members exchanged glances. Patricia leaned forward. "That's actually an excellent idea, Mrs. Mitchell. It would allow us to maintain quality while being more inclusive. Would anyone like to second the proposal?" Jennifer's hand went up immediately. "Seconded." "All in favor?" The motion passed unanimously. Sarah felt a flush of satisfaction, the particular kind that comes from contributing something meaningful. After the meeting, Patricia approached her. "That was well done. You have good instincts." "Thank you. I've learned that sometimes the best solutions are the ones that don't force anyone to choose between their dignity and participation." Patricia's eyes flickered with something that might have been shame. "I deserved that." "That wasn't aimed at you specifically. It's just something I believe." Patricia nodded slowly. "You know, when you first came to my office, I saw another problem to manage, another complication. I didn't see a person. I'm sorry for that." "You've apologized before." I know, but some things bear repeating. Patricia paused. My own mother raised me alone after my father left. We didn't have much. I remember being excluded from things, feeling less than. Somewhere along the way, I forgot that. I let this position, this school, turn me into exactly the kind of person I resented as a child. Sarah was surprised by the confession. We all lose our way sometimes. Some of us more than others, but I'm trying to do better. And having someone like you on the board, someone who can remind me of what matters, that helps. They walked out to the parking lot together, an unlikely alliance forming in the cool September air. The winter holiday concert was a triumph. Sarah secured sponsorships from 8 local businesses, enough to not only cover the venue costs, but also provide free refreshments for all attendees. The sliding scale pricing worked beautifully, with many families choosing to pay at or above the suggested amount. Emma performed in the first grade chorus, her voice probably not audible among the dozens of children, but Sarah recorded every second anyway. She watched her daughter up on that stage, confident and happy, and felt David's presence so strongly it almost took her breath away. He would have been in the front row, she thought, probably crying, definitely embarrassing Emma with his enthusiastic applause. After the concert, as families milled about in the lobby, a woman Sarah didn't recognize approached her. "Excuse me, are you Sarah Mitchell?" "I am." The woman extended her hand. "I'm Maria Santos. My daughter is in Emma's class. I just wanted to thank you." "For what?" Maria's eyes grew damp. "I lost my husband last year too. Military. When I got the notice about the concert and saw the sliding scale option, I cried. It was the first time since he died that I felt like someone understood, like I wasn't being judged for what I couldn't provide." Sarah felt her own eyes sting. "I know exactly what you mean. My daughter Sophia, she was so excited to come tonight. She kept talking about how her friend Emma's mom made it so everyone could be here." Maria laughed softly. "I think she exaggerated your role, but still. Children have a way of seeing things clearly sometimes." Sarah glanced around the lobby, at the families talking and laughing, at the children running around in their concert attire. "I just wanted to make sure no one felt the way I felt when I couldn't afford the spring gala." "Well, you succeeded, thank you." They exchanged phone numbers, and over the following months, Maria became one of Sarah's closest friends. They understood each other's grief in a way that others couldn't, shared the unique challenges of single motherhood, and celebrated each other's small victories. Christmas came and went, quieter than years past, but not without joy. Sarah and Emma decorated their modest tree with ornaments they'd made together, including a special one for David, a paper angel with his photo pasted on the front. "So Daddy can see our tree from heaven," Emma explained. "That's a beautiful idea, sweetheart." They spent Christmas Eve watching Emma's favorite movies and eating popcorn in their pajamas. When Emma finally fell asleep, Sarah sat alone in the living room, looking at the tree lights twinkling in the darkness. "I'm doing my best, David," she whispered. "I hope you're proud." A log shifted in the fireplace, sending up a small shower of sparks. Sarah chose to see it as a sign. As the new year began, Sarah found herself in an unexpected position. She'd become something of a leader in the school community. Parents sought her advice, teachers respected her input, and even Patricia Henderson treated her as a trusted partner rather than a problem to manage. The transformation was remarkable, and sometimes Sarah had to remind herself that less than a year ago, she'd been sitting in that office, being told she didn't belong. One February afternoon, she received a call from Catherine Brooks at the foundation. "Sarah, I have some news. We've been so impressed with your work that the board would like to offer you the full-time coordinator position. It comes with a significant raise and benefits." Sarah's heart leaped. "Catherine, that's incredible. I don't know what to say." "Say yes, we need you." "Yes, absolutely yes." That evening, Sarah took Emma out for ice cream to celebrate. They sat in a booth at the local parlor, Emma attacking a sundae that was almost as big as her head. "Mommy, what's a full-time job?" "It means I'll be working more, but at a place I really love, doing things that help people." "Like helping families come to the school party?" "Exactly like that." Emma nodded, a smear of chocolate on her chin. "That's good. Daddy always said helping people was the most important thing." "He did say that, didn't he?" "Mommy, do you think Daddy knows you got a new job?" Sarah reached across the table and wiped the chocolate from Emma's chin. "I think he does, sweetheart. I think he's watching over us all the time." "And is he happy?" Sarah thought about the question, really thought about it. David had always wanted her to pursue her passions, to not let fear or circumstance hold her back. He'd believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. "I think," Sarah said slowly, "that he's very, very happy." The spring arrived early that year, warm breezes chasing away the last of the winter chill, and with it came the announcement that the annual Spring Gala would once again be held at Westbrook Elementary, now under the guidance of the newly formed Inclusion Committee, a group Sarah had helped establish. This year, there would be no $400 contribution requirement. Instead, families would be invited to contribute what they could, and corporate sponsors would cover the rest. Every child would be welcome, regardless of their family's financial situation. The night of the gala, Sarah stood at the entrance of the gymnasium, greeting families as they arrived. She wore a new dress, bought with her own money, earned through her own efforts. Emma stood beside her in a sparkly pink dress, having finally gotten her wish for something that matched Madison's from the previous year. The gymnasium was transformed again, but this time, Sarah noticed something different. The decorations were just as beautiful, the food just as elegant, but there was a warmth in the room that hadn't been there before. Families mingled freely, without the invisible barriers of wealth and status that had once defined these events. Patricia Henderson arrived fashionably late, as always, but her demeanor had softened. She made a point of welcoming every family personally, especially the ones who were attending for the first time. "Quite a difference from last year," she murmured to Sarah as they surveyed the room. "It is, and it didn't cost us any less or compromise any quality." "No, it didn't. I've learned a lot from you, Sarah." "We've learned from each other." The evening's entertainment was a local children's theatre group performing scenes from popular fairy tales. Not as splashy as Elizabeth Montgomery, but the children were entranced, and that was what mattered. As Sarah watched Emma laughing with her friends, she felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to find Robert Chen standing there, looking slightly nervous. "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all. I'm glad you came." "I wouldn't miss it." He hesitated. "Sarah, there's something I've been meaning to talk to you about." "Oh." "I know this might seem sudden, and I want you to know that I'm not trying to replace David or rush you into anything. But I've come to care about you and Emma a great deal over this past year, and I was wondering if you might like to have dinner with me sometime, just the two of us." Sarah felt her cheeks flush. She'd suspected Robert's feelings had evolved beyond friendship, but hearing him say it out loud was different. "Robert, You don't have to answer now. I just wanted to put it out there, no pressure." Sarah looked at this kind, patient man who had done so much for her family, who had become such a steady presence in their lives. She thought about David, about what he would want for her. "I'd like that," she said finally. "Dinner sounds nice." Robert's face lit up with a smile that made him look 10 years younger. "Really? That's wonderful. How about next Saturday?" "Next Saturday works." Across the room, Emma caught Sarah's eye and waved enthusiastically. Sarah waved back, her heart full to bursting. Later that night, after Emma was asleep and the house was quiet, Sarah stood at the window of her bedroom, looking out at the stars. "I'm moving forward, David," she said softly. "Not moving on, not leaving you behind, just forward. I hope you understand." A shooting star streaked across the sky, brilliant and brief. Sarah smiled. "I'll take that as a yes." 1 year later, Sarah stood at the same window, watching the same stars. So much had changed, and yet so much remained the same. She and Robert had taken things slowly, building something solid and real. He'd become a father figure to Emma, never trying to replace David but filling his own unique role. Emma adored him, and the feeling was clearly mutual. Sarah's job at the foundation had flourished. She'd organized dozens of events, raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for local families in need, and helped establish programs that would outlast her own involvement. The Westbrook Elementary Spring Gala had become a model for inclusive school events across the district. Patricia Henderson, now a close colleague rather than an antagonist, had presented at conferences about the transformation, always crediting Sarah with the initial vision. But perhaps the most significant change was internal. Sarah had learned to carry grief alongside joy, to honor the past while embracing the future, to be both the person she was with David and the person she was becoming without him. Emma was growing up, 9 years old now, and rapidly approaching the tween years that Sarah both anticipated and dreaded. She still talked about her daddy, still kept his photo by her bed, still celebrated his birthday with a cake and candles blown out to send wishes to heaven. And Sarah had come to understand that this was exactly right. Grief wasn't something to get over, but something to get through, and through, and through, endlessly integrating into the fabric of life. On the 2nd anniversary of David's death, Sarah took Emma and Robert to the cemetery where David was buried. They laid flowers on his grave and stood in silence for a while. "Hi, Daddy," Emma said finally. "I miss you, but I'm okay. Mommy's okay too, and Robert takes care of us. You'd like him." Sarah felt tears streaming down her face, but didn't try to stop them. "She's right, David. We're okay, we're more than okay, and I know that's because of you, because of everything you taught us about love and kindness and resilience." Robert put his arm around Sarah, offering quiet support. As they walked back to the car, Emma slipped her hand into Sarah's. "Mommy, do you think Daddy's happy in heaven?" "I do, sweetheart, I really do." "Good. I want him to be happy, and I want us to be happy too. Can both things be true at the same time?" Sarah squeezed her daughter's hand. "Yes, baby, both things can absolutely be true at the same time." The following weekend was Emma's 9th birthday party, held in the backyard of their modest home. Nothing fancy, just pizza and cake and a bounce house that Robert had rented despite Sarah's protests about the cost. All of Emma's friends came, including Madison and Sophia. The parents gathered in clusters, chatting and laughing while the children bounced and shrieked and consumed alarming quantities of sugar. Sarah found herself in conversation with Maria, both of them watching their daughters, with the particular pride of single mothers who'd navigated impossible circumstances. "Look at them," Maria said, "so happy, so resilient. Kids are tougher than we give them credit for." "So are moms." Sarah smiled. "We've had to be." Patricia Henderson had been invited as well, a development that still surprised Sarah sometimes. The director had become something like a mentor, guiding Sarah through the complexities of community leadership and school politics. "Quite the gathering," Patricia observed, joining them. "You've come a long way from the woman who sat in my office 2 years ago." "So have you." Patricia acknowledged this with a small nod. "We both have. I suppose that's what growth looks like." As the party wound down and the guests began to leave, Sarah stood in her kitchen, surrounded by the debris of celebration, feeling more content than she had in years. Robert came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Good party." "The best. Thank you for the bounce house. Worth every penny to see those kids' faces." They stood together for a moment, watching through the window as Emma said goodbye to her last remaining friends. "Sarah, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "Do you think we're ready to take the next step?" Sarah's heart skipped. She knew what he was asking, had known for a while that he was building toward this moment. "What kind of next step are we talking about?" Robert turned her around to face him. The kind where I ask you to spend the rest of your life with me. The kind where I become Emma's stepdad officially. The kind where we build a family together, the three of us. Sarah looked into his eyes, searching for any doubt, any hesitation. She found none. Yes, she said simply. Yes? Yes, to all of it. Robert pulled her into a kiss, and when they finally broke apart, they found Emma standing in the doorway, watching them with a knowing smile. Does this mean Robert's going to be my new dad? Sarah knelt down to Emma's level. It means Robert is going to be your stepdad, and he's going to love you and take care of you just like he has been. Is that okay with you? Emma considered this seriously, with all the gravity a 9-year-old could muster. Then she grinned. Does this mean I can have two daddies, the one in heaven and the one here? Robert crouched down beside Sarah. That's exactly what it means, if you want it. Emma threw her arms around both of them. I want it a lot. They stayed like that for a long moment, the three of them, wrapped in an embrace that symbolized everything they'd been through and everything they were becoming. Later that night, after Emma was asleep, Sarah sat on the edge of her daughter's bed, watching her breathe. The photo of David still stood on the nightstand, a constant reminder of the man who had shaped their lives so profoundly. We're going to be okay, David, Sarah whispered. We're going to be more than okay, and I promise we'll never forget you, not ever. She kissed Emma's forehead, turned off the lamp, and walked out into her new life. The wedding was held on a perfect day in June, in the backyard of the house that had once felt so empty and was now filled with love. It was a small ceremony, just family and close friends, exactly what Sarah and Robert both wanted. Emma served as flower girl, taking her duties very seriously, scattering petals with careful precision. Maria was Sarah's maid of honor, and Robert's brother flew in from California to serve as best man. Patricia Henderson came, along with several other parents from the school community who had become genuine friends over the past 2 years. Gloria, the receptionist, cried through the entire ceremony, happy tears that she dabbed with a lace handkerchief. When Sarah walked down the makeshift aisle, she carried a bouquet that included a small photo of David tucked among the flowers, a way of including him in this new chapter. The vows were simple but heartfelt. I promise to love you, to support you, to stand beside you through whatever life brings, Robert said. And I promise to love Emma as my own, to help guide her and protect her and cheer her on. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I'm just hoping to add to the love that already exists in your lives. Sarah's voice wavered as she spoke her own vows. I promise to open my heart to you fully, without reservation. I promise to build a future with you while honoring the past. And I promise to let you in, even when it's scary, even when it would be easier to stay protected behind walls, because you're worth it. We're worth it. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, Emma cheered louder than anyone. The reception was held right there in the backyard, under string lights and a clear summer sky. There was dancing and laughter and more food than anyone could possibly eat. At one point, Sarah found herself standing slightly apart from the celebration, just watching the people she loved enjoy themselves. Margaret came to stand beside her. You okay, sis? More than okay, just taking it all in. David would be proud of you. You know that, right? Sarah nodded, her eyes glistening. I know. I think I've finally made peace with that, with the idea that moving forward doesn't mean leaving him behind. That's growth, Sarah, real growth. It's been a long 2 years. The longest and the shortest at the same time. Sarah laughed, recognizing the truth in that paradox. Exactly. As the evening wound down and the stars came out, Sarah and Robert shared one last dance. Emma had fallen asleep on a lawn chair, exhausted from the excitement, and someone had draped a blanket over her. Happy? Robert asked. Incredibly. Any regrets? Sarah thought about this carefully, as she did with everything now. No regrets, just gratitude, for you, for Emma, for everyone who helped me find my way back to hope. Including the school director who tried to kick your daughter out of a party. Sarah laughed. Especially her. If she hadn't been so awful that day, I might never have had the motivation to change things. Silver linings. Always. They swayed together under the stars, two people who had found each other through circumstances neither could have predicted, building a life that honored the past while embracing the future. In the years that followed, Sarah often reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the grief that had nearly consumed her, the struggle to survive, the unexpected kindness that had changed everything, the gradual transformation from victim to advocate, from outsider to leader. She never forgot what it felt like to sit in that office, being told she didn't belong, and she dedicated herself to making sure no one else had to feel that way. The inclusion committee she'd helped establish became a permanent fixture at Westbrook Elementary, ensuring that every family could participate in school events, regardless of financial circumstances. The model spread to other schools in the district, then to other districts entirely. Sarah was invited to speak at education conferences, sharing her story and her vision for more inclusive communities. She wrote articles, mentored other struggling parents, and raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for families in need. But her proudest achievement wasn't any of that. It was Emma. The little girl who had lost her father grew into a young woman of remarkable kindness and resilience. She volunteered at homeless shelters, organized fundraisers at her high school, and eventually pursued a degree in social work, inspired by her mother's example. "You taught me that everyone matters," Emma told Sarah on the day she graduated from college, "that everyone deserves a seat at the table. I want to spend my life making sure that's true." Sarah cried then, the happy tears of a mother who sees her child becoming everything she hoped for and more. David would be so proud, she thought. He would be so incredibly proud. And somewhere, somehow, she believed he was. The story of Sarah Mitchell didn't end with the spring gala, or the wedding, or any single moment. It continued on, rippling outward in ways she could never have imagined, touching lives she would never meet. The mother who couldn't afford the party became the woman who made sure every mother could. The widow who felt alone in the world became the leader who built community. The woman who thought she'd lost everything discovered she'd only just begun. And it all started with a choice. The choice to show up when it would have been easier to hide. The choice to ask for help when pride said to suffer in silence. The choice to forgive the people who hurt her and to transform pain into purpose. Life isn't about the circumstances we're given. It's about what we do with them. Sarah Mitchell had been given grief, and she'd turned it into grace. She'd been given hardship, and she'd turned it into hope. She'd been given a community that tried to exclude her, and she'd turned it into a movement of inclusion. That's the power of one person refusing to give up, one mother deciding that her daughter deserves better, one human being choosing love over bitterness, hope over despair, action over acceptance. The school director who laughed at the widowed mom eventually became her ally. The world that seemed cold and unwelcoming eventually became her community. The life that seemed over eventually became fuller than she ever dreamed. Because it's never really over, not as long as we keep showing up, not as long as we keep choosing hope. And Sarah Mitchell chose hope every single day for the rest of her extraordinary life. She taught her daughter to do the same, and Emma taught her children, and so the legacy continued from one generation to the next, a chain of kindness that began with a single mother who refused to be defined by what she couldn't afford. In the end, that's what mattered. Not the money, not the status, not the approval of directors and committees and social hierarchies. What mattered was love. What mattered was resilience. What mattered was the stubborn belief that better days were possible, even when evidence suggested otherwise. Sarah Mitchell proved that belief true. And her story, this story, is proof that you can too. Whatever you're facing right now, whatever obstacles seem insurmountable, Whatever doors have been closed in your face, remember this: you are stronger than you know. You are more capable than you believe, and your circumstances do not define your destiny. Get up, show up, reach out, and never ever let anyone tell you that you don't belong. Because you do, you belong, you matter. Just like Sarah, just like Emma, just like every single person who has ever felt less than, left out, or left behind. This world needs you, your community needs you, your family needs you. So keep going, keep fighting, keep hoping. The best is yet to come. And one day, when you look back on the journey, you'll see that every struggle was a stepping stone, every setback was a setup, and every closed door was directing you toward the one that was meant to open. That's not magic, that's not fantasy. That's just life, unfolding the way it does, full of pain and beauty and unexpected grace. Embrace it, all of it, and watch what happens next. Because if Sarah Mitchell could turn her worst day into the beginning of her best life, so can you. So can anyone. The party that a widowed mom couldn't afford became the catalyst for a revolution of kindness. The director who laughed found herself transformed. The little girl who just wanted to see a princess grew up to be a princess herself in every way that mattered. That's the story. That's the message. That's the truth that Sarah Mitchell discovered on her journey from despair to hope, from exclusion to leadership, from heartbreak to love renewed. It's the truth waiting for all of us, if only we have the courage to claim it. So claim it. Today. Right now. Your story isn't over. It's just beginning.